Hello everyone. Welcome back to the second session of Python, and let's get started. For a recap, in the last session, we learned about the basics of Python, in which we learned how to do basic stuffs in Python, like print strings, simple math operations, and we learned how to use variables and what they're used for. We also learned how to comment in Python for code readability. And today we're going to learn about lists, dictionaries, tuples, and what we can do with these things and help us um, how they help us code. So before we start with today's lesson, does anyone have questions about last lesson? Okay, let's get started. We're gonna start with tuples. So in Python, tuples, dictionaries, and lists are basically the same thing, where we can use multiple things to store. So it's like one variable, or like it's a list where we can store multiple values in there. So like in last class, we learned how we can like name a variable and we can put like something in there. So like this variable X is storing the string hello. So what a list does is it can store multiple things, and then tuples is a different version of it. So let's start by a list because it's a little simpler. So we can name list. So we can name it whatever. So I can say like list, or actually I'll say list one, right? And then list one, and you use square brackets for this in order to define a list. And then you can just type whatever you want. So you can say hello, then you would come out, comma, then you could say bonjour, so like hello in different languages, and then hola. And then when you go, you could do print list one, and then when you run it, it prints out the whole list just like that. So lists are useful when you want to store multiple values in there. For example, you want to like store like a whole bunch of people's names in there for like a list. So like names of people in your class, or like names of people in a certain thing. So you could store in here. Now the other thing about lists in Python is that you don't have to store one type of thing in it. So you could say number 4, and then you could say true, and then you could say 57, right? And then when you run that, it prints out all of this. So it doesn't have to be just one type. So like in variables, we learned that it has to be a similar type in there. So I can't say hello plus 4 and then expect to say print X. It would give me an error, right? Because it gives me an error because 4 is not a string, and when we're printing string, we have to make it a string. So for that, we would have to do string, convert that into a string, then it'd be hello 4. So in lists, you could store any type of variable. It doesn't have to be like one similar type. So you could say 57, or you can do floats like 5.4, right? Or 5.3, and it prints that out. So lists can be pretty beneficial when it comes to storing things. And tuples, so this is lists, right? Now tuples are similar. Also name this tuple one, but in tuple you cannot change the value of the list. So in the list right now, right, there's multiple operations that come with a list. So let's say you start your list out with like these values, right? Now you print the list out, and now you want to, let's say, add another version of hello, right? Or you want to add a number. So what you could do is list one dot append. Append means to add something at the end. So you could do list dot append, and then you could do 23. And then when you print list one, it adds 23 to the last. So it adds it to the end, and then yeah. So you could add things to it. So now we don't have to do a number. We could say we could do, let's say, Boolean, right? So we can do false, and then it adds false to the end. Now we can do the same thing, and we can remove something. So we can do list1 dot remove, or and then if we just do this, and we print list1, it's gonna remove the whatever the value is at the end of the list. Oh, my bad. It's pop. Sorry about that. It's pop to pop, not remove. But yeah, so dot pop makes removes whatever is at the end. Now let's say you want to remove whatever is on the first, right? So in list, or like in most languages, in programming languages, what happens is when we count how many things there is in a list, we would count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? So there's 7 things in the list. But when what Python does and other programming language does is this part doesn't start with number 1, it starts with number 0. So that's like a part of like programming where whatever the first value of any list is always 0. So it's going to be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on. So let's say you want to remove this hello, right? So you could remove certain things. So you can say remove 0 for index 0. So index 0 means whatever is at the 0 value of the list, it removes that. So 0 value is this. So when we run that, it removes it and it prints out rest of the string, or the rest of the list. And then same thing over here. Let's say we want to put false right next to true, right? So we could do that. How we do that is we count whatever position this is. So 0, 1, 2, 3, and then this is 4. So we want to print it after 4. So what we're going to do is false, comma 4. Oh, I put it in the wrong place. You can do 4, comma 0. So what this does is what? Okay, okay, 1 second. That's weird. So usually what happens is I'm not sure what's coming on. Either one of the syntax is wrong, but I'll figure that out in a little bit. But usually what happens is you could do like with function. So usually it's add, if not append. It switches between Python, like the different versions of Pythons. So like some platforms that you use append, some that you use add, some might have like other languages. So it depends with like different versions of Python, but usually you print out like the where you want to add something and what you want to add. So like this place we wanted to add it at index 4, so we do 4 comma and then whatever we want to add. So I'll try to figure out what's wrong with this part in a little bit, but yeah, and then I'll go over that. But yeah, pop is this. So pop works with the index. So moving on, so tuples, right? Tuples are basically the same thing as list, but they cannot be changed. So in order to define a tuple, you would use normal parentheses, and then you can write whatever you want. So we're just gonna copy this part, right? And when we type this in, so now once you declare this, you know how we were able to change list over here? So like I was able to remove something or add this in the list. We cannot do this with tuple. So whatever is set in the tuple stays in the tuple. So when I do print tuple1 and I run it, it prints out the tuple, right? But now let's say if I were to do tuple1 dot append, so append something to the end, and then I can say hi. It's not gonna work because tuple cannot do append. It doesn't work with tuple, nor can I do pop. So if I wanted to do pop and just remove the last thing at the end, right? It doesn't work. It's not gonna work. Tuple cannot be changed. But what we can't, okay. And then other thing, now what happens is that let's say you have a big list, right? But you only want to translate or you want only like a certain value of this. So let's say you only want bonjour. So you could do print and then list one, right? So this would print out the whole thing. But now in order to access certain variables, you could do a square bracket and then here type out whatever index you want. So bonjour, right? 0, 1. So we would type 1, or I'm sorry. And it prints out, oh, that's because I'm popping right here. So comment this out for a second. And yep, bonjour. So we can print that out. Now let's say if we want Ola, we could do 2. And that prints out Ola. So we can do it with anything. So 5, let's say, prints out 57. Now let's say we do like 8. Our list is smaller than 8, but we print out 8. It gives you out of list. So out of range error. So it has to be within range, but you can print out whatever you want. And now let's say, so same thing from last time. So just covering up like a little bit of recap. Let's say we want to say hello in French is, right? And then we want to print out list and then we put 1 for bonjour. It's going to give you an error or no. It's going to give you an error if you print out a value. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? 4 is true. So it's going to give you an error because it's Boolean. So again, if you wanted to print out like this strings would work because we print out a string. But if we were to print out any of these values, it would give you an error. So just a reminder, you would have to convert this into string and then type it, and then it's going to give you true. So yeah, that's one other thing you have to keep in mind, that you have to convert everything into the same type of expression when you want to print something out. So does anyone have any questions with the basics of list? Okay, so no questions, then yeah, I figured out the other part. So over here, instead of append, it's called insert. So insert 4 comma, and then we could do false. Now it's gonna insert false right there. So in order to append, you put whatever value you want to append, and it appends that to the end. If you want to put it in a certain place, you have to use dot insert. Pop works with this, so you can do pop and then whatever value you want. Okay, and then you could also change certain values um, in a list. So let's say you want to change the value 4 to something else. So you do 0, 1, 2, 3, right? So you could do, we'll do right here. So list 1 dot set. So what set does is it's like setting a value. So what index you want. So number 3, and then what do you want to set it to? So we can say hi. And then when we print out print list 1. Right. Um, why is this not working? Um, okay, well, this is not working for some reason. Um, oh, okay. So what you would want to do is list dot 3 equals, let's try that out. List one. Yeah, there, that works. So yeah, you don't use that, you assign it. So what we're doing in this line is the same thing we're doing right here, where we are calling a value from the list. So over here, we're calling the value on the fourth index. Over here, we're calling the value of third index, and we're changing it. So we're saying whatever value of third index has in list one, change it to make it equal to high. So then it changes number 4 to high, and then it prints out the rest of it. So yeah, that's that. And then now what we also can do is, let's say we have a list, but we don't know the size of it. So we could do print, and then we can do len, and then list one. What this does, length function, what this does is it prints out the length of whatever this value, whatever the list is. So 7. Now, if you want to check that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 prints out the list of 7. So this can be useful when we're going to learn later on how to use for loops or like different types of loops where we want to like do certain action for a number of times or like go through a list, right? So that can be helpful then, or like in different points. So that's the basics. And now same thing over here with tuples. So if you want to like get a certain value of a tuple, so our tuple is right here, and then we print out bonjour, we can do this and then change this to tuple 1. And then it prints out the value of tuple. So the only difference between list and tuple is that list can be changed, but tuples cannot. Everything else are the same. So we can put 5 and then we can put true. Everything else works the same. It's gonna work. Just the only difference is that we cannot change the values in a tuple. It's unchangeable. Now the third type of list there is called a dictionary. So so what a dictionary does is it can hold different values. So let's say we declare a dictionary by using curly braces now. So this defines that this is a dictionary. So what happens is that I'm just gonna make it a little neater. So I'm just like, actually no, it's easier for you guys to understand it this way. So in a list dictionary, you know how you want to store like let's say you're storing a password and username, right? So you want to say username equals to this and then password equals to that. So that's what you would use a dictionary for. So you can do, it's like key object relationship. So how you would do that is that you would say string, then name, then you would do colon, and then you could say name and then equals Shobit. Then comma, and you can say password equals, and then we'll change this to username. Actually. So now what this says is it's storing. So username becomes like the value, or you can say like, yeah, the username is the value, and then Shobit would be like the username. So it's storing the username Shobit and like the variable username. Same with password. So password is kind of like the variable, and hello is like what's inside the variable. So like when we do x equals to hello, so that's basically what it's doing here. So now if we were to print out this, it prints out username is this, and then password is this. So the other thing you can do with this is that you can make, actually, I'll show you that in starting with a list. Then we'll go into dictionaries. But dictionaries are basically like a key object relationship where you can assign one thing many different values. So for example, we have lists right here, right? So we have a list of different types of how to say hello. And then we can also do a list within a list. So let's say we do comma and then we start a list within a list. And then we could start, let's say we could do names of cities. So London and then Tokyo. We could do New York. And then when we print this out over here, you can see like this is a list and then within a list, there's another list. So we could do like a list within a list. Same thing over that applies in the tuple. So in tuple, you could do the same thing. So let's just copy this list down here. And then print that out. It works, right? So the unique thing or like a little tricky thing that's gonna be like a little confusing to learn is that, so remember when I said tuples cannot be changed and I said that tuples, you cannot change any value in a tuple? Well, it turns out you can change a value in the list, right? So over here, we're changing a whole bunch of values in lists. So we can do that in a tuple. So what happens is we can do this. So we have tuple 1, and then we call in the index. So actually, before I go into this, I want to show this over here. So now we have this list, right? Let's say instead of printing out the whole list, what do you, if you want London, that's it. Nothing else, just London. So in order to print that out, what you would do is print list 1. Now you would, instead of calling one variable, so when over here you would call 0, if you were to print this out, it usually prints out hello, right? Sorry for this mess. Let me clear this part out a little bit. Make this a little bit neater. Comment this out. Actually, I'll comment it this way. Okay. And then I'll do it this way and there. Didn't end the comment. Okay. There. So it prints out hello, right? So now if you want to access London, what you would do is you would use double brackets. So here you would say, you would go to the list or whatever index list is. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we do 7. And then whatever value within a list. So London is 0. Print out and then it prints out London. So you would use like, it's kind of like a coordinate grid, X and Y coordinates. So X would be like whatever in your first list, and then Y would be like whatever in that list. So X, Y coordinates. So you can think of it as in like 7 to the right, so 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 7. And you could do like 0 up, so like whatever first thing at list part 7 is. So same thing over here with tuple, right? So you can do we can do it this way. And then I'm just gonna remove this part right here. And then we can do okay. Let's change this a little bit. So we can do one city in Europe is, and then we can do same thing. So tuple, and then we could do 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So change this to 5, and then 0. So when we print that out, it prints out one city in Europe is London. So remember when I was telling you you could change lists? So right here, let's say what if you wanted to add, you wanted to change New York to, let's say, Paris, right? So you would do is list 1, 7 for place 7, then 0, 1, 2. So you want to change variable at 2 equals Paris. Then we print out list 1. So print, and then we could do list 1, and we print out the value of list 1 up there. So 7, then 2. Changes it to Paris right here. So it changes it to Paris. So that's how you change lists within a list. So same thing, which is a little tricky here, is that you could do the same thing in a tuple. So I did say that tuples are unchangeable, but what the trick or like what kind of like you can call it a loophole is that because this is a tuple and there's a list within a tuple, you can technically change a list because a list can be changeable and you're not changing a tuple because tuple is still gonna have a list. You cannot remove a list, but you can change what's in a list. So you could do like tuple one value 5 0 equals pairs. And then you print out the same thing. So print out and then print the same thing out here. It's gonna print out pairs because it changes the list, but it's not changing the tuple. So does anyone have any questions with this? Because lists can be tricky, so you have to like be careful with how you're manipulating lists. So it has a lot of like benefits to it, but if you're not sure how to correctly use it, it can be pretty annoying. So any questions for that? Okay, why don't we take 5 minutes, try practicing out simple things for the list. So let's say you could print out different cities or like different capitals of the world, try changing the values, try like using lists within a list, and then after 5 minutes, I'll show you the same thing, but how we would incorporate this into a dictionary. So we'll go a little bit more in dictionaries. Take 5 minutes. Okay, so I have a question in the chat which is asking about explaining a little further about how tuples and how to add and subtract the list. So what exactly do you have a question about? So like I understand that you want to like learn how to change values in a list, but what exactly are you confused about? Like, do you want me to go over how to change a value like I was doing over here, where I was renaming it to Paris, or okay. So what I'm basically doing right here is think of it as a coordinate plane, right? So in math, when your teacher tells you to like graph a point at 7, 2, what do? So you go right 7 times and then you go up 2 times. So basically, that's the same thing that's happening over here. So think of it as an x and y, like a coordinate plane, right? So at x equals to 0, so like at coordinate, like x equals to 0, it's hello. That's the value. At 1, it's bonjour. At 2, it's hola. And it keeps going like this for like how much ever long the grid is. Now let's say you come up to like value 7. At value 7, you see that there's a list that's also going up. So now you could do like 7, 2. So now you want to go 7, 2, you come to value 7, which is this list. Now you say, okay, now I got to 7, now I have to move up to the y coordinate. So I go up value 2. So you start at 0, then you go 1, then you go 2. So at 2, you have New York. But now if you were running this line right here, you would just print out New York. So it's telling Python, yeah, whatever it is at 7, 7, 0. My fault, sorry. 7, 0. So it would just take London and it would just print it out right here. Now over here, you're saying you want to change the value at 7, 2. So what it does is it runs through 7, 2, so it comes to New York. Now it says don't put New York. Now you want to replace it with Paris. So what Python does is it takes Paris and it puts it in instead of New York, and then it prints that out. So when it prints out, it just prints out Paris. So yeah, that's how you change it. So the same thing is happening in tuple. So in tuple, I'm saying that you cannot change whatever's in the tuple. So I cannot change hello, but I can change whatever's inside the list. I cannot say like I want to remove this list or I want to like add a new list. I cannot do that because that's changing like what's inside these brackets, right? What's inside these parentheses. I cannot change what's inside these parentheses, but I can change whatever's inside the square bracket because that's a list. That's not a tuple. It's just inside a tuple, but it doesn't matter because it's inside the list. So I can make the list longer. So what I can do is I can do no, I cannot do that either because that would be changing the tuple. So the only thing I can do is I can change a value, whatever is inside the tuple, but I cannot like over here, you know how we were doing like insert, so we were adding a certain value at a certain point in the list. So I cannot do any of that in a tuple, but I can change like let's say London, and I can change that to equal to like Paris or like New York or Los Angeles. I can change that, but I cannot say like I want to add a certain value in the middle of London and Tokyo. I can't do that because that changes like how long the list is. So it's technically changing how long the tuple is. So I can't do that, but I can like switch out this value to like Paris or something like that. So does that answer your question? Okay. So any other questions before we move on to dictionaries? Okay, let's move on to dictionaries. So before I went on to just a little bit on dictionaries, right? So I told you it's kind of like object key relationship. So what I mean by that is, let's say, so I'm just gonna comment out any of all of this real quick, just so this is not like disturbing when I like go over dictionaries because this can be like a little annoying. So comment out all of that, and now we're gonna start new. So dictionary one equals. So you use curly braces again. Curly braces define dictionaries, parentheses define tuples, and square brackets define list, right? So let's say easy example of showing you like what I mean by object key relationship is that you could store, you know how we did list within a list? So you can do basically or kind of like that in a dictionary. So it becomes like quite complex. So we're just gonna keep it a little simple for now, just because we're beginning with this. So I don't want to like confuse you guys. So we could do cities, right? So we assign cities, and then we do a colon to say tell whatever we are, and then we're gonna put a list with inside of this, right? So I'm just gonna like format this a little bit just to make you guys like it's just to make it like a little more simple. So now we're gonna do what is it, comma, and then we can do let's say so we did cities, and then we're gonna do countries. I'm just gonna change the order. So we could do let's do country, and now we do cities right here, and then colon, and we're gonna do a list, right? So what we can do is we could like kind of make this into like a neat kind of stack, let's say. So we're gonna start with like a United States. Then we could do let's do France. And then we're gonna do let's India, and then we can do Japan. So right here, what we're doing is we created, so this is kind of like our object country, and it holds a different like list of countries. So these are like a list of countries. So United States, France, India, Japan, and except go on. And then we could do cities. So we can like we're gonna match these with this. So whatever like a city in United States. So New York. Then we're gonna do a city in France. So Paris. City in India, we can do Delhi. Then we can do city in Japan, Tokyo. And then we're just gonna this blank space. And then yeah. So now think of this as a you know like let me think of an example. Kind of like think of it as like a mm, you know like folders or like let's say yeah, kind of like object keys. So like you know how you store username and then password. So like a username stores something in it. So it's like kind of like a variable. So when I define x equals to hello, right? Or like when I define a list, so like we're saying a list and then I'm putting like a whole bunch of values in here. So like our list up top here. So what's basically doing is it's organizing this list. So I call this list one here, right? So now if I were to create like the same list with these countries, so let's copy this over and I'm gonna call this list country, and then I'm just gonna paste this. So what this is doing is it's creating a list of countries. So same thing I'm gonna do with cities, right? So what happens is, let me just do the same thing over here. So I'll show you guys like how city dictionary can be useful. So I'm gonna call it cities, and I'm gonna create this. Okay, let's forget there's a dictionary over there. Just forget about this, right? So we have two different things. Now let's say I want to print out a city in the United States. So originally I would do print, then um let's do yeah, so I would do a city in, then we would print out country 0 and then plus is add, and then we're gonna do cities and sorry, 0. So when we print this out, right, A country and city 0 is this. Why is it not working? Comma. Oh, I didn't add a plus sign here. Sorry about that. Yeah. So a city in United States, we're just gonna add a space here. So a city in United States is New York. So in this, we have two different things, right? So what dictionary does is it's basically using these two same things, but it's just putting this into one variable. So if I were to print this out, same thing, what I can do is first, let's just say print dictionary. So I'll just to see like when you print this out, what it actually looks like. So we run that. It shows like, okay, country is like your value, and what holds countries is this list. Then cities holds all of this, right? So if you were to print out like the same thing, a city and this is this. So what instead of doing country equals to 0, let's we would do dictionary. So just change this to dictionary 1 equals, and then we're gonna do like same thing we did in list. So we're gonna do two brackets. So bracket 1 is we're gonna call one of these. So you can see like it's popping up. Like what do you want to do? Like a key object relationship. So we're gonna say country. And then what do you want inside country? So we're just gonna do 0, like whatever is on the first index. And then same thing over here. So we're gonna do dictionary 1, and then we're gonna use doubles, right? And then we're gonna do instead of 0, what do you want in the first? Sorry, what do you want over here? So we're gonna do cities now, and then we're gonna put 0. Now when we print that out, it prints out a city in United States is New York. So what if we were to do this for France? So we can change 1, and we can do 1. And it prints out a city in France is Paris. So that's what dictionaries are. So it's kind of like a key object relationship. That's what we call it in coding. We call it a key object. If it's confusing to you, kind of think of it again as like a graph. So on your coordinate, let's look at like a graph. So like on your first coordinate, you have a value of countries. Now, when you go up, you can see like, okay, like x equals or like y equals to 1 or y equals to 2. There's United States and then there's France. Then when you hop over to like x equals to 2 or like the second whatever there is, it's cities, and it has like different cities. So you're kind of like matching it in a sort. So it kind of like creates like a or creates kind of like like it organizes it. So we can like make this further, and then we could like have let's say what is it called? We could create like population, right? So we could do like population. Remember, in order to declare the value of this, use colon. So let's create another list. So we can do like population of New York. So we're gonna put let's say 7 million people, right? Then we could do population of Paris, 2 million. Population of Delhi, let's say 3 million. Population of Tokyo, we could say 5 million. Now we can call this, so let's name this a little bit neater. So like we can describe instead of just saying dictionary 1, make it like a little boring. Let's say we could call it like we're explaining whatever country, their population, their densities. So we could call this, let's say, geography, right? So we're kind of like explaining what each city is, or yeah. So we're gonna have to, of course, change all of these because we're changing the name. So I'm just gonna do this. Um, new, and then we're gonna say copy that, right? Just 1 second. What's that not working? Okay, we'll do it this one. So yeah, we're just gonna run that again just to make sure our code's running. It's still working, right? So now let's add another statement in here, and then we can call it is Paris, comma, the population is, and then we call our dictionary. Then what do you want in dictionary? So we're gonna call population. And then in population, what index do we want? We want index 1. So run that, the population is 2 million. So now what you could do in order to like increase or like, we can say like increase your efficiency, you can say, is that we can make a variable, right? We can say variable equals to 1. And then what we can do is we can change wherever 1 is and just change it to X and then change it to X. So now what this is doing, this is like helpful and like when you're making big programs, this will increase your work by like a lot. So all you have to do is make like a dictionary, whatever values you want, and then you assign a variable. So now when you run that, it prints out a city in France is this. So all your work was to like simply, you can say like code this, right? Now let's say someone asks you, okay, I don't want France, I want, let's say, India, right? So all you have to do is change it to 2, and you could do it changes to the whole program itself, so you don't have to worry about it. So that's what's neat about dictionaries, is that you can store like, let's say, whatever you want that's related to one thing, you can just store everything in here. So you could say like, you could also like, for example, another thing we could do is we could do, I'm just gonna clean this up a little bit. So make this look a little neater so it's understand. We could do president, or actually, yeah, we can do president. And then let's say you wanted to do, I'm just gonna do president of the United States, so we can do Joe Biden. And I'm not gonna like put in all of them. So we're just gonna keep it to this, and then we could do plus, comma, the president is, and then we add geography, then we want president, and we want president, and then we want, there you go, president, and then we want 0, or X, my bad, and then we put 0, right? And it's going to print out a city in the United States is New York. The population is 7 million. The president is Joe Biden. So it's useful because you have everything in one place instead of having it over here. Over here, you would have to like keep a track of each individual list. And then let's say, what if you were to confuse the values, right? So you put like New York with like France and like switch these two values, it kind of becomes annoying. So over here, like over here also the other thing is that you can be like countries and lists. They're two different lists at two different places. So it can be confusing of like where what is what's called. In here, what is that geography is like your main list, or like you can like call it like your dictionary. So like, like you can think of it as like in like real terms, my dictionary, right? So like in real life, a dictionary contains like a whole bunch of words, then it contains the meanings of those words. So you can technically like think of it that way. So like our dictionary, the name of our dictionary is geography. So inside there, there's a list of countries. So it's gonna be like name all the countries in the world, let's say. So these are just some of the examples. Then it's gonna have like cities and population and president, and it's just going in order. So when you want like a certain value of something, you could just like code a general thing, put like a variable here, and then call it in whatever value you want. So that's kind of like the symbols of dictionaries. Does anyone have a question on that? So why don't you guys try this out? Let's take 5 minutes and try out, let's say create your own dictionary, right? Let's say create a dictionary with all the schools there are in your district, or let's say different people in your class, and then you could say like what their age is, what kind of sports they like, how tall are they, you know? Just like simple things, whatever you want. You could do it with like things you own. So like different kind of books you have and different kind of toys you have, what kind of games you like, create a dictionary of that. Then print out some certain things like this. Take 5 minutes and let me know if you have any questions. Okay, so does anyone have any questions about list or like in general overall? Okay, well, with that being said, this is all we have time for today. So just for a recap, we went over the list, how to change it, So like simple expressions of list, how to like add, pop, change different values in a list. Then we also went about tuples. And like one more thing we did in list is like add another list within a list. Then we did tuples, where tuples we learned that are not changeable. You cannot change tuples, but you can put a list in there and change whatever is in the list, as long as it doesn't change how long the list is or how short the list is. And it doesn't remove or like add a new list, you know? So we could do like change New York to like whatever value we want. Then to end that off, we learned about um, dictionaries, where we combined all of our knowledge that we gained from list and tuples, and we learned that we dictionary is kind of like a sorting place where we can like sort out like everything in one place. So our example we did was we did geography, so we did like different countries with different cities and different populations and presidents, and we kind of just created like an organized graph of it technically. So like kept in mind like each of them are like similar. So like we kept like first index, like first row of it, all for like one place. So like United States, New York, this. So like kind of like rows and columns, you know, like a graph. So like one row is United States only. So everything about United States goes in that one column. So like our first part, like first value of every list is about United States. Second is going to be about all friends. Third is going to be about India. Fourth is going to be about Japan, and so forth. And we learned like in order to make our life simple, make it like a little more efficient in coding, we could just create like a variable, put that in our code, and then all we have to do is just change it at one place, and it changes everywhere. So if no one has any questions about all of that, I will see you guys next week, where we'll learn about for loops and different kinds of loops that help us iterate in a program. But yeah, thank you.